Number 1. The absolute demographic chasm of Dubai. Dubai is a city that functions less like a traditional settled society and more like a hyper-coordinated global labor hub where 90% of the population is foreign and native residents make up a tiny minority. This demographic structure creates one of the highest immigration rates on Earth. Yet the vast majority of these individuals possess no permanent residency rights, cannot own sovereign land, and have absolutely no path to citizenship. The entire framework of survival in this metropolis is tied directly to the corporate labor market. Over 80% of residents maintain residency rights strictly through active work visas, meaning that the absolute moment an employment contract terminates, the legal right to remain in the country instantly vanishes. This spatial and structural design ensures a transient, highly dependent labor force that coexists under entirely separate legal and social welfare systems. The income gap between these strata is staggering, with differences reaching up to 50 times even within the exact same corporate project. Unskilled laborers from South Asia earn a meager $220 to $400 per month, and service or retail workers bring home between $330 and $680. Meanwhile, international professional expats receive between $2,200 and $4,900, while senior managers and engineers can earn anywhere from $5,400 to $16,300 each month. This stark stratification maps directly onto urban geography, where central apartment rents in luxury consumption zones like downtown Dubai or Dubai Marina easily exceed $2,500 per month, completely cordoning off these areas from the high-density, low-amenity residential quarters of Al Quoz and Muhaisna. If a system separates its population so completely into parallel social and economic universes, how long can such an artificial social contract sustain its stability before the underlying human friction fractures the illusion? Number 2. The machinery of modern sponsorship bondage. Expatriates arriving in the Arabian Peninsula quickly discover that the shimmering promises of rapid economic advancement are governed by the rigid legal mechanics of the traditional kafala sponsorship framework. Under this system, a migrant worker's legal residency and employment status are tied entirely to their individual employer, known locally as the kafil. This structural arrangement grants employers an absolute power imbalance over their workforce. If an employee attempts to flee an abusive working environment or disputes unfair treatment, the sponsor can legally file formal charges of absconding with municipal authorities. This immediate legal maneuver criminalizes the act of escaping exploitation, exposing the worker to swift detention, heavy financial fines, and immediate deportation. While regional neighbors have enacted sweeping legislative reforms to replace sponsor-controlled residency with contract-based models managed via transparent government digital portals, the local framework relies heavily on administrative dispute channels that international human rights watchdogs consistently criticize. These oversight bodies frequently categorize severe labor indicators, including the illegal withholding of documents and forced retention, as minor administrative disagreements rather than structural human trafficking violations. This legislative environment leaves thousands of low-wage expatriates highly vulnerable, as changing jobs requires navigating immense bureaucratic barriers or securing explicit consent from the very employer they are seeking to leave. Number 3. Transnational deception trapping vulnerable female expatriates. Vast brokerage networks operating across East Africa and Southeast Asia actively recruit tens of thousands of women annually, offering glossy brochures that promise corporate roles in hospitality, retail, or administration. These contracts signed in home countries outline monthly salaries typically ranging from $450 to $700. However, upon clearing immigration, the reality of the migration trap becomes immediately apparent as actual starting wages are frequently reduced by 30 to 50%, leaving these women with baseline payments of only $250 to $400 per month. Furthermore, many are forced to immediately forfeit their initial earnings to repay exorbitant recruitment fees that often amount to thousands of dollars, effectively entering a cycle of debt bondage from the moment they land. These female workers are routinely placed in high-pressure environments, completely different from initial agreements, enduring grueling shifts lasting 12 to 16 hours daily as domestic helpers, cleaners, or private caretakers. Because domestic labor sectors remain largely excluded from the comprehensive oversight of the automated wage protection system, These women face extreme risks of absolute wage theft and physical confinement within private villas. Passports are routinely confiscated by employers under the pretext of administrative security, stripping these workers of independent mobility and forcing them to endure severe exploitation out of a deep terror of being cast into illegal residency status. Number 4. The severe legal cost of public emotion. Beneath the glittering surface of gold-plated shopping malls and record-breaking architecture lies a highly synchronized public surveillance network designed to strictly enforce absolute social decorum. Tourists and residents alike operate under a pervasive web of artificial intelligence cameras that monitor daily interactions across transit systems, commercial hubs, and residential zones. In this high-security environment, the expression of raw human emotion can carry severe criminal penalties. Publicly swearing, shouting, engaging in heated arguments, or flashing offensive hand gestures are treated as direct violations of local cultural laws. Tourists who react impulsively during rush hour traffic or minor commercial misunderstandings frequently find themselves facing immediate detentions or heavy financial fines. Furthermore, local privacy regulations are exceptionally strict, making it a distinct legal infraction to film or photograph any individual in public spaces without obtaining explicit, verifiable permission. A seemingly harmless travel vlog that inadvertently captures upstart's faces can result in immediate security intervention, mandatory data erasure, and potential prosecution if the content is deemed an invasion of privacy on social networks. Maintaining absolute behavioral composure is not merely a matter of politeness in this desert metropolis. It is an essential survival tactic required to avoid swift entanglement with an unforgiving legal system. Number 5. The architectural myth of the empty skyscrapers. For more than 2 decades, intense real estate speculation has driven a high-intensity construction boom, transforming the desert skyline into a dense forest of glittering glass monoliths. Yet, independent urban planning data reveals a striking structural paradox, showing that over 30% of the city's luxury skyscrapers sit completely unoccupied, existing as dark, hollow structures amidst a sea of global capital allocation. This phenomenon becomes intensely visible during the extreme summer months when entire residential towers go completely dark as wealthy seasonal residents flee the desert heat. For the ultra-rich elite, purchasing a multi-million-dollar apartment is rarely motivated by a desire for habitation or rental yields. Instead, these vertical assets serve as an anonymous store of value, a reliable hedge against global inflation, or a highly convenient vehicle to park untraceable capital flows far from international regulatory eyes. Even the iconic 2,700-section-foot Burj Khalifa embodies this vertical exaggeration. While it stands as a global symbol of engineering pride, only about 160 of its floors are actually usable for residential or commercial purposes. The upper portions of the world's tallest building consist largely of hollow technical spaces built exclusively to secure the height record. Furthermore, the extreme cost of building maintenance fees, which run into thousands of dollars monthly per unit, ensures that these massive real estate developments function more like physical wealth museums than functioning communities. Number 6. The failing artificial paradises in the Gulf. The drive to physically conquer the natural environment culminated in the creation of the World Islands, a massive $14 billion land reclamation project consisting of 300 artificial islands engineered to replicate the map of the Earth. Decades after the initial dredging operations shifted hundreds of millions of cubic meters of marine sand and rock, the project stands as a premier example of speculative economic inefficiency. Only a tiny fraction of the islands have achieved operational development, as the compounding cost of marine preservation continuously outpaces the revenue generated by high-end resorts. Each individual island demands an annual expenditure of $1 to $1.5 million simply to operate continuous sand pumping and erosion control systems, a figure that spikes past $3 million for larger landmasses due to a relentless coastal erosion rate of 5 to 8 centimeters every single month. Because these isolated landmasses lack connections to the mainland grid, resorts must operate decentralized power generation, water desalination, and waste management systems, resulting in monthly energy costs between $120,000 and $180,000. This massive ecological engineering effort has caused a devastating 35% decline in local coral formations, choking natural oyster beds with heavy silt and disrupting Persian Gulf wave currents. With occupancy rates hovering around a low 35%, The artificial paradises represent a staggering financial burden that struggles constantly against the laws of physics. Number 7. The surveillance web restricting tourist privacy. International visitors stepping off flights into the city are instantly integrated into the Falcon Eye network, a highly sophisticated, citywide facial recognition system that links thousands of high-definition cameras directly to centralized municipal control rooms. While promotional this time highlighted this infrastructure as the ultimate guarantee of traveler safety, it simultaneously establishes an absolute digital dragnet that eliminates any expectation of public privacy. Internal security procedures within mega shopping malls give private guards the legal authority to immediately detain and question any tourist whose behavior deviates from strict unwritten norms of public decorum. This intense scrutiny extends directly into the digital realm. The state maintains active monitoring capabilities over local internet traffic, and individuals who post negative commentary or distribute images exposed as detrimental to the public image of the municipality can face immediate travel bans. Visitors must constantly monitor their surroundings, as actions as taking a selfie near a government building or capturing a panoramic view that includes restricted residential zones can spark immediate legal investigations, transforming a luxury vacation into an abrupt lesson in sovereign legal authority. Number 8. The severe parallel realities of industrial food. The deep socioeconomic bifurcation of the metropolis is mirrored perfectly in its highly polarized food culture. On one end of the spectrum, the city hosts some of the most expensive dining experiences on Earth, where the affluent class participates in lavish weekend brunches costing upwards of $1,000 per person, designed primarily to generate eye-catching validation on social media feeds. These elite gastronomic displays feature imported delicacies, gold-plated dessert, and ultra-luxury service standards within air-conditioned hotel enclaves. Conversely, far away from the tourist, the industrial zones of Al-Quoz and the Sonapur labor quarters rely on a massive, low-cost institutional food apparatus to sustain the physical engine of the city. Here, tens of thousands of construction workers line up outside basic dining halls to consume cheap, mass-produced portions of rice, lentils, and flatbread. These meals are prepared in high-density communal kitchens where basic ingredients are stretched to the absolute limit to keep daily subsistence costs under $2 per worker. This stark dietary divide emphasizes an urban ecosystem where food is either weaponized as an aggressive marker of stasis or reduced to the bare minimum of fuel required to keep millions of low-wage laborers working under the scorching sun. Number 9. Volatile luxury credit creating graveyards of supercars. A social ecosystem that equates personal luxury with economic survival, owning a high-performance automobile is frequently viewed as a mandatory shield against social invisibility. Local financial institutions make luxury auto credit remarkably accessible, offering loans up to $544,000 with minimal documentation requirements and a low 30% down payment. This aggressive credit model entices thousands of middle managers and foreign expatriates into intense lifestyle inflation. However, the legal penalties for financial default remain swift and absolute. While recent legislative updates have modified the historical practice of automatic imprisonment for bounce checks, substituting civil court fines instead, the remaining legal mechanisms are exceptionally severe. If an individual defaults on an automobile loan, the state can instantly execute civil asset freezes and implement immediate international travel bans, effectively trapping the debtor within the country with zero access to their financial capital. To avoid this legal confinement, thousands of defaulting owners choose to abandon their supercars at airport parking lots, leaving the keys in the ignition and fleeing the country overnight. This creates a striking visual reality where thousands of top-tier Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and McLarens gather thick layers of desert dust in impound yards, serving as concrete evidence of the rapid financial collapse that routinely claims the overextended middle class. Number 10. The untraceable shadow capital fluting real estate. Rapid ascent of the local real estate market into a premier global investment hub is deeply linked to an economic model built on absolute transactional duties and zero tax policies. For years, international financial watchdogs placed the United Arab Emirates on the Financial Action Task Force Grey List due to strategic deficiency in tracking cross-border wealth and checking large cash-based property acquisitions. During this monitoring window, massive inflows of hard-to-trace capital from highly volatile regions flooded the luxury real estate sector, driving a dramatic 40% surge in villa prices within a single year as buyers utilized anonymous shell companies to convert cash into physical assets. Although the municipality has recently implemented stricter client due diligence procedures and established specialized financial courts to secure its removal from the gray list, independent investigative groups reveal that significant vulnerabilities remain active. The SIS continues to serve as a high-liquidity destination for conflict gold and proxy networks seeking to anonymize substantial fortunes, revealing a deep structural reliance on global shadow capital to sustain the velocity of its vertical urban expansion. Finally, the subsidized desert glass generation and future. In absolute contrast to the grueling realities endured by the migrant workforce, the tiny minority of native Emirati youth grow up insulated within an extraordinary state-funded welfare cocoon. The government fully covers the entire cost of higher education, providing fully funded postgraduate awards at elite international universities like Oxford and Harvard, alongside generous annual living stipends. Upon marriage, every native couple is presented with a free state-subsidized villa worth over $400,000, accompanied by cash wedding gifts and a full complement of domestic workers recruited from South Asia to act as private drivers, chefs, and housekeepers. While this comprehensive subsidy framework guarantees a life of absolute material comfort, social researchers warn it has simultaneously engineered a delicate desert glass generation. Public sector labor productivity across these heavily protected roles averages roughly 40% lower than global benchmarks, despite salaries remaining nearly double the private sector average. When personal advancement and wealth accumulation are completely disconnected from individual effort or competitive innovation, the long-term motivation to face real macroeconomic challenges is structurally eroded. This deep internal divide leaves a hypermodern metropolis resting on a fragile human foundation, where the select few who own the sky remain completely dependent on the millions who toil in the dust below. The information is for reference only, so please do your own research before making any decisions.